Well, you know something, Joe Rogan? When I walked into this place, that was the perfect style for me, dude. The paintings, the mugshots, all the people that I beat up. I knew this was the place to be, man. So what you gonna do when Rogan and Hogan run wild on you, brother?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm good. All right.
He just got
go.
I'm
a
good now.
childhood boner.
And an adult
good.
boner, too.
Yes, indeed, Hulkamania was running wild on the Joe Rogan Experience this week. Hulk Hogan has been making his rounds publicly and making the news quite a bit here as he's promoting some sort of CBD gimmick. He's in the weed game. He's doing the same thing that Ric Flair's doing with Mike Tyson, whoever's running that whole weed company, signing people up to do these brands. And Hulk Hogan has a weed brand. And you can tell he's really old school because he's always just talking about the medicinal benefits of it, you know, trying to just kind of play down the low-key fact that everybody just wants to get baked, and then it gets you all fucking baked. Well, Rogan was all baked off the Hulk Hogan stuff. And so was Tony Hinchcliffe, who is a stand-up comedian in the Joe Rogan posse, if you will, who also has a fantastic podcast, by the way, called Kill Tony. If you like stand-up comedy, please seek out Kill Tony. Tony Hinchcliffe, also a huge wrestling fan, and Joe always includes him in on these wrestling conversations. So there was obviously no doubt that Tony was excited to get into all the details to find out what made Hulk Hogan Hulk Hogan. Where'd he get all the shtick, brother? Here's what Hulk had to say.
Some of the things that you do, like the hand to the ear and all that, was that Vince or you, or you guys think of this stuff together?
No, that was stolen. That was stolen.
From what?
Well, this guy named Austin Idol. Yeah, he's another guy that looks like Flair, just like Flair almost. And I was in Dothan, Alabama one night, and I saw him just do this, and it was louder than any reaction he got from the whole match. I saw him. I said, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." So I just kind of like. I wound it up and started going in and just place blew, you know. And then when I'm down and they lift my arm once, somebody's getting to sleep and they lift my arm twice, then they'll lift my arm the third time and I put my arm up and I go, stole that too from Dusty Rhodes. Saw him do that when I was a kid.
How about the Hey Brother?
That was mine.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a big one. but anyway,
Tony's excited.
Say your prayers, take your vitamins.
that's mine.
Nice.
The shirt tear, that was an accident. I was in the ring with these two guys, Greg Gagne, who was the promoter's son, and Jim Brunzell. I'm standing in the middle of the ring, and they just reached up and ripped my shirt off me. Each guy grabbed my shirt and ripped it, and the place went crazy. I went, oh, shit, that works.
A fairly honest Hulk in this episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, and I do say fairly honest Hulk. Clearly being open and honest there about stealing some shit outright from other people. Hulk's really good. He's a very good, we covered this when he was on the Theo Von podcast talking about the same shit. Plugging the CBD gimmick or the weed brand or whatever. But, Hulk's got a very, very fine-tuned way, a very sneaky way of tying in truths and self-deprecation. Oh, I just stole that shit. I just took it from somebody else. I didn't come up with that. I'm not smart enough. There's a cat hair across the screen. Doesn't matter. Fuck the cat hair. Hulk Hogan, brother. But he had no issues telling the truth about where he got some of his shtick from. This Austin Idol character, and then obviously stuff from the fucking superstar Billy Graham, all the tie-dye, the colors, the Fu Manchu, and all that stuff. But it wouldn't be a Hulk Hogan podcast without some tall tales or outright lies. And sometimes it's hard for even me to tell. You know, I'm not an ultimate fact checker here. There was definitely some bullshit stories in this podcast, or maybe just some misspeakings. But in this clip here, Hulk Hogan got into telling the story about the territories to Joe Rogan. Rogan had asked, what the system was like back in the day when he started, and then how Vince McMahon changed the game for pro wrestling. And then there might be some tall tales in there about how Hulk Hogan nearly escaped within an inch of his life from being murdered. Check out these clips.
So in the 70s, when you were first getting going, how many different organizations were there? Were there like small local places, and then there's one big one that was on television? Like, how many different organizations were there back then?
Like when I grew up, I saw Florida Championship Wrestling, and that's the only thing I saw,
So that was like a local.
Yeah, it was just a local promotion.
Was it cable back then?
No.
Regular
it was just
TV.
local TV, and we didn't get Channel 17, Ted Turner's cable. And at the time, I didn't know that there was Madison Square Garden, New York territory. That is New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. And then there was like Minnesota, Vern Gagne's territory. Then there was Fritz Von Erich, Dallas. Bill Watts had Louisiana. Michael LaBelle had L.A. So there were all these little teeny territories, and all the promoters respected each other. So if Joe Rogan had Texas, I would never come in to Dallas and try to run a show in your area. There are these imaginary boundaries that you don't cross, you respect. That was Vince McMahon Sr. Yeah. And he was loyal to all these promoters, and every once in a while he'd send like superstar Billy Graham down to Florida to wrestle, or Ox Baker from New York down to wrestle, and we'd see these guys come in, and I didn't know where they came from, but they'd come in, and the local hero like Dusty Rhodes would beat them up and they'd be gone. So I had no idea how the whole system worked, and all I saw was Florida Championship Wrestling. But then when I went to work for Vince Jr., and I went back after being fired and having my first run in New York, when I went back in '84 to beat the Iron Sheik, Vince wanted to cross all those imaginary boundaries, and I'm going, wow, this is going to be dangerous. So Vince says, are you up for it? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And so Vince stayed in Connecticut, in Greenwich, in the office, and, then I was booked in Lafayette, Louisiana. We pump our signal in there for like 8 weeks. Prime example is Kansas City. I don't know if you ever heard of a wrestler named Harley Race.
Yeah, of course.
NWA champion, tougher than hell, meaner than a snake. Great guy, though, okay? We pumped the signal into Kansas City for 8 weeks. And Harley Race has been there like 18 years. He was the NWA champion. I'm the champion of the world, and he's a very proud and mean son of a bitch. And all of a sudden, here comes this blonde-haired idiot from New York going, hey, I'm the WWF champion. I'm the WWE champion. I'm coming to Kemper Arena. And we're pumped the signal. So I fly into town, and I show up about 2 in the afternoon. My guys call me, Harley Race came down here with a gun. And he tried to light the ring on fire.
Whoa.
And the cops ran him up, and they didn't arrest him. I went, oh, shit. And they told me, Harley said, when I show up, he's going to kill you. So now I go to the building, and I had to go to the bathroom, man. My stomach was killing me. So I'm sitting there on the toilet going to the bathroom. And I don't know if you know a wrestler named Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog.
Yep.
Oh, my God, the fucking king's here. The fucking king is here. He's going to kill you, Hogan. Davey Boy comes in and screams at me. I pull my wrestling yellow tights up. Don't even wipe my ass. As fast as I could, because I don't want to get caught with my pants down in there. I want to have a fighting chance. I come blowing out of the bathroom. I turn around the corner. He puts that gun right in my face. And we're in Kemper Arena, and he goes, you know what? I should kill you, Hogan, for coming in here and doing this. And this is Harley Race talking to me. And then he puts the gun down. He goes, but I really need a job.
Wow.
I went, holy shit. Holy shit. I shook his hand, brother, and I was a huge fan. Loved the guy to death anyway. But that's the type of stuff me and Vince were doing. We're going to other people's territories. And then, first time we go down to Puerto Rico. I've never been to Puerto Rico before. All the boys tell me how violent it is. They cut you. They burn you with cigarettes. They throw everything at you in Puerto Rico. So I'd never been. I didn't need to go. But now Vince wants to go down to Puerto Rico. And Carlos Colon had the territory there for like 30 or 40 years. So here we come. And I go rolling down to Puerto Rico with Cyndi Lauper with me, right? So I go down to Puerto Rico, and we have the match, and we sell at the stadium. Me and Macho Man go back to the room, and we go walk in his room, and his room is trashed. His room is trashed. And so all of a sudden, I go, oh, my God, let me go to my room. So all of a sudden, I go to my room, and I don't want to say the guy's name, but when I open the door, he's sitting there, and because he's still really active, and he's sitting there with a gun. He said, if you ever come back here, I'm going to kill you. About 4 months later, Bruiser Brody goes down there, has a little argument. The booker calls him into the shower, cuts his throat, and kills him.
Jesus Christ.
So that's down there in Puerto Rico.
So there's some clear time frame discrepancies there with the Puerto Rico thing. I don't believe WWF ever went to Puerto Rico around the time that Bruiser Brody was murdered, nor was it within just a few weeks of Bruiser Brody's murder, nor was Bruiser Brody's throat slit. He was actually stabbed to death. But it doesn't matter. You get the point, right? That could just be old age. That could just be Hogan's brain mushing stories together. But and of course the Harley Race story, this has been talked about by other people, so there is some substantial truth to this. I don't know how much of the way that Hogan tells it is the gospel truth or not, especially about I just need a job, brother. That sounds like a Hulk Hogan twist on a story that might be true. Like I said, he's very good at weaving shit into, and Hogan is a professional bullshitter. We've covered this a couple weeks ago when Hogan was on Theo Von's. I'm going to link that actually at the end of this video. If you're watching just the clip, I'll put it at the end of the clip as like the next recommended video to watch. You can kind of check out. It's the many lies of Hulk Hogan. So I don't want to just rehash that whole video here, even though there's probably more to add to it. But there is some truth to Harley Race pointing a gun or wanting to at least shoot Hulk Hogan for coming into the territory. And honestly, that does sound like a Harley Race thing to do. To be 100% honest with you, that's not it's not a stretch to believe that Harley would do such a thing. But to ask for a job, I don't know. I mean, Harley did end up in WWF. Short, in the early 80s, he was around, as the King Harley Race. But, WWF was scooping everybody up back then. So it could have just been something that they picked up along the way. Maybe Hulk did get him a job. Who the fuck knows? But Hulk likes to tell his tall tales. As far as the guy in the room in Puerto Rico, Hulk said, I don't want to say his name because he's still quite active. I don't know who the fuck's still quite active. That would have been mad enough that Hulk was in the Puerto Rican territory to pull a gun on him and threaten to kill him back in 1987. I mean, Carlos Colon's not active. That would have been the guy, right? Or maybe it was the Invader guy that killed Brody. Same guy, but he's certainly not active now. Was it Carlito Caribbean Cool? He'd fucking pull the apple out, bite it, and spit it in fucking Hulk's face. You don't come around here, this territory again. It's not cool. Could be. I mean, stranger things have happened, but Hulk, nonetheless, tall tales and all, of a fun, interesting interview. A lot of Joe Rogan-esque conversations too. It's interesting to hear Hulk get roped into some of the, Rogan's always got to talk about some kind of fighter and skills, which they had a great conversation about Brock Lesnar, by the way. It was earlier on in the podcast. It's like a 3-hour podcast. So, I mean, earlier on, they had a good story about Brock. Hulk did say he worked with Brock after the UFC, but I think he just misspoke because Hulk did actually work with Brock after he came in from college. He was one of the first people Brock worked with. So that much, I think could have been a misspeak. But they got into the fucking current day politics a little bit and the possible mandates coming back up and talked all kind of A-Team movies, Mr. T, all of that shit, the whole Joe Rogan-esque well-rounded conversation. If you're into Joe Rogan's podcast, you probably already listened to it, but if not, absolutely go listen to it. And look, Hulk's a good he's fun to listen to, whether he's bullshitting or not. I was going to say earlier, Hulk's a professional bullshitter. And it's like, it's part of his carny roots as a pro wrestler. He's working. He's always working. And I think sometimes Hulk doesn't even realize he's just in storytelling mode, right? Somebody will say something and it'll just trigger him, like for example, from the, see, cat hair. There's fucking shedding everywhere. In the Theo Von interview, Hulk, Theo asked Hulk if he liked the UFC, and Hulk couldn't help himself but say, yeah, we had the opportunity to buy it, but we passed on it because it was too violent. We being him and Vince, pronouns, pal. Yeah, you remember when Vince and Hulk Hogan were going to buy the UFC. It's all nonsense, but I mean, it is what it is. It's part of Hulk Hogan's legend. And to me, I find it endearing at this point. It's adorable. It's his little tall tales, his little falsies, right? It's not hurting anybody. He's not, he recently made the news from this, he did was it a magazine of some kind or a newspaper interview? And he mentioned that story again about him being in Wembley Stadium after the main event. The little kid in the crowd that died. The Make-A-Wish kid. He was there with Mr. T and Michael Jackson after main eventing the Wembley Stadium show, which he wasn't even in the company for. So it's things like that. But to me, it's harmless. It's harmless working. He's talking to people that don't even know better. Like I said, Tony Hinchcliffe's a big wrestling fan, but he's not a smart mark like we are. He's a big wrestling fan, like he gets off on the shows, right? Like he was marking out about, this match with you and The Rock and how fun was that? But he doesn't know the intricate details. He doesn't get down to the nitty gritty and listen to all the fucking podcasts and interweavings and dirt sheet bullshit like we do, right? He just watches it and enjoys it. He's one of those people. And he loves it, and he talks about it and references it all the time, but he doesn't know all these facts. He might have heard a thing or two. He probably doesn't watch the documentaries, right? Rogan certainly doesn't know better. So in like a Theo Von in that previous interview, he didn't know better. He's just in awe of talking to Hulk Hogan. This is cool. We're talking to the Hulkster. So Hulk in that newspaper or magazine or whatever, where he's talking about the Wembley, he was bullshitting that chick so hard in that interview. It's like he's just working. He's just keeping the lore of Hulk Hogan alive, the mystique. He was a Make-A-Wish guy, so why not weave that into Wembley Stadium's in the news right now because AEW, so let me reference how I was the main event there once, even though you weren't, but WWE was there, so it's half verifiable, right? Nobody's going to look into that, like a Tony Hinchcliffe's going to go, oh yeah, I remember they were at Wembley, that's right. And that's the extent of it, So Hulk's really, really good at that, and to his branding, and I consider it working. And it's just him working and being Hulk Hogan, brother. It's not hurting anybody by doing it, but people call him out on his shit left and right. So I'll leave that in the end cap here for you if you want to watch that. But certainly Hulkamania is still running wild. He's out there in the news. Not in the he is in the wrestling media news, for all his bullshit stories and stuff. But Hulkster just out there fucking keeping his name alive. Had a great conversation about Rocky 3 with Hulk too, or with Rogan, I should say, because Rogan obviously loved that movie, and Hulk was just fucking eating that alive and chewing that up. And Hulk came in starting a little dickish, I thought. He was a little grumpy. I made a comment about that last time too with the Theo Von thing. Hulk seems a little grumpier in his old age, and fair enough, because the dude can barely move around, and he's old as fuck, and I think he's earned the right to be a grumpy old man. But he warmed up after a while. as they got going, he started talking, and you get glimpses of, and with Rogan's podcast is really good at, a 1 hour podcast. It's great for listening, and that's kind of the standard issue, and it comes and it goes, and you're on to the next. You're able to get some good questions in there and get a good gist of what's going on. But with Rogan, it's 3 hours long, and it's a conversation, not necessarily an interview. And he'll ask questions about the career, as we've covered on, in those clips, but he'll also just shoot the shit with you. And you get into that flow of conversation, and after an hour deep, 2 hours deep into, and it slows down to the end, everybody gets tired and stuff, but there's a peak in the middle there where you really get into some deep shit, and people kind of let their guard down and they unwind, and you get that vibe of what it would be like to just hang out in the locker room and shoot the shit with Hulk. What it was like when he would hang out with Eric Bischoff and have beers and shit. And I believe Hulk was stoned. I mean, Tony, Hulk has been known to have been a pot smoker in the past. He doesn't really admit it publicly, especially even out promoting it. He doesn't say that he uses it necessarily. But Tony and Joe admitted to being high as fuck off Hulk Hogan's weed. So I can't imagine Hulk sat that out. You know what I mean? They're all just kind of sitting around baked, having a good time, talking some wrestling, talking some Brock Lesnar, having a good old time. So highly recommend checking it out if you can bear it. It's like I said, almost a 3 hour conversation that gets to be long. You can listen to it in pieces. I did. I don't sit and listen to 3 hours all at once. I actually had to break it up over a couple days, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. I didn't want to just pull from the clips. There's a couple just clips on YouTube, like them talking about Rocky 3 and that sort of thing. So, wanted to give it the full opportunity. So I recommend checking that out. There's no link in the description, I don't think, because it's Spotify exclusive, but we'll see if I can pull something up for it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on Joe Rogan, on this particular episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. If you're a Kill Tony fan, let me know that. I will pop for that because I love me some Kill Tony. Hulk Hogan, what do you think about him? Professional bullshitter. Is he an icon, a legend in your mind, or do you hate him still for all the N-bombs and just stupid shit that he's done? Do you think that his bullshitting is hurting the business, that it's purposely self-serving, or do you think it's just something almost involuntary? He can't even help himself at this point. It's just built into his... it's just how he does. That's just the way of Hulkster. Let me know all of that shit down in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to eat my vitamins, and I'm going to move on to the next. Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.